Hello my friends.
We are delighted to welcome you to the Alterac Valley.
Using the patented technology of moving through the universes, we visited the world of YuGiOh.
In this video, we as Hearthstone fans want to share with you our extremely subjective impressions of Master Duel.
We will try to identify the strengths and weaknesses of the new game. Also, we will try to figure out which company is more cynical, Blizzard or Konami. Despite the titanic efforts of developers, traditional Hearthstone is not at its best right now. And Blizzard's bad reputation is aggravating the situation. Therefore, the bright release of the new YuGiOh game is a great occasion to rethink our experience in collectible card games.
Guys, it's impossible to talk about the phenomenon of this game without knowing the history of this franchise. YuGiOh is a Japanese collectible card game based on the manga. The first 40-card set was released by Konami in 1999. The same year saw the release of the first video game Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories on the PlayStation. An important part of the franchise is the anime series.
Over the past 20 years, almost 30 video games have been released for different platforms. As of January 2021, Konami sold about 35 billion cards worldwide, and grossed over $9 billion.
If Magic the Gathering is the father of collectible card games, then Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the child who was able to surpass the parent.
Just look at levels of user interest in 3 of the most famous collectible card games in history.
This is not quite a correct comparison for Hearthstone, since the game only has a digital version, but despite this it has been competing with the two titans of board card games for a long time.
Friends, let me briefly talk about the important stages of the development of the game. My introduction to Yu-Gi-Oh! Came from the Power of Chaos video game series, which first came out on PC in 2003 and consisted of 3 parts. The number of new cards in each part of the game increased exponentially and in the final version amounted to 700 cards. Over time strategies became more complex and exciting, and the gameplay more diverse. The second game for me was GX Tag Force for the PlayStation Portable. This game has a wonderful storyline, the ability to challenge other characters to get a special currency for buying packs from a special store. In this game, 2,400 collectible cards became available. I've spent countless hours playing this game.
A very important part of the franchise was the release of Yu-Gi-Oh! Online, in 2005 for PC. The main feature of the game was the ability to play against other players.
I was lucky enough to play this version for a while, and the only thing I remember was extremely long matches of 20 to 30 minutes and very high cost, as players had to buy virtual packs for real money. I was not ready to invest in virtual collection and quickly left the game. It turned out to be the right decision. The game received 3 important updates, the last of which took place in 2009, and in 2012 the game servers were completely closed. Players who invested real money in virtual cards lost their collections forever.
New games were released every year, but they became exclusive to different, most often portable consoles.
In 2014, Hearthstone came into my life. The game, without exaggeration, revolutionized the card game genre in terms of gameplay and design. Blizzard has managed to create new standards in the industry.
For years, Konami ignored the needs of gamers to integrate the franchise into more mainstream platforms. But the success of Hearthstone influenced their decision to make the first mobile version of the game, which, among other things, became available for PC. So, at the beginning of 2017, the world saw the release of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links.
This game is fairly casual. Players have half as many hit points and X are halved. In addition, one of the combat phases is missing, and the battlefield can only accommodate 3 creatures and 3 slots for spells and traps.
I spent several weeks in the game and was disappointed with the visuals, the technical state of the game and its approach to monetization. The game forced me to grind and play a lot of battles against weak bots, but at some point the level of power of computer opponents increased significantly and it became much more difficult to extract resources without investing real money.
While preparing this video, I was wondering how much money this game generates for Konami. According to the Sensor Tower website, in December, on iOS alone, the game earned $8 million in all countries except China, while Hearthstone earned $2 million worldwide on the iOS platform. Hearthstone fans think that their game is extremely expensive, but Konami finds even more cruel ways to swindle money.
Thus, starting in 2012, after the closure of Yu-Gi-Oh! Online, PC players lost access to official games, forcing them to use unofficial simulators.
Everything changed just a month ago, when the first ever fully cross-platform Master Duels game was unexpectedly presented. This was the most important news in the history of card games since the release of Hearthstone. Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans have the opportunity to play their favorite game as much as they want on any platform. In our previous video, we were able to establish that the player engagement in the first weeks after the release of the game, on the Steam platform alone, was 3 times higher than the player engagement in Hearthstone's constructed formats, on all platforms, after the release of the new expansion. This phenomenal success testifies to the continued high interest of players in collectible card games.
And we are finally ready to share our impressions of the Master Duel with you.
The first thing we noticed is the visual component. Yes, we understand that players who have played unofficial simulations for many years are likely to be delighted with the visual implementation of the game, but we cannot ignore the fact that visual standards have changed significantly. The menu is awkward and not intuitive. The collection manager looks more like a puzzle.
My long break had consequences, as thousands of new cards and dozens of brand new mechanics were added to the game. I met some of them through solo mode. The solo content itself is very boring. If you love PvE fun, then this game is not for you. We believe that the solo content in Hearthstone could be more diverse, but comparing the two games, Team 5 are true geniuses who try to tell stories through combat. Konami won't waste time on this.
The only advantage of solo content is that it was able to introduce us to new mechanics. And you know what? Many of them seemed very interesting to us. This is the first thing that Hearthstone lacks. The number of different mechanics and combinations is amazing, and it's extremely fun. But despite the huge number of cards available, only 6 decks dominate the metagame.
Balancing the metagame occurs with the help of partial or full bans of powerful cards. Gameplay at higher ranks depends a lot on the order of turns, as some decks are capable of destroying you on the first or second turn. The duration of a turn is practically unlimited, and the absence of mana allows some decks to play 40 cards on the first turn. In this case, all you have to do is watch your opponent's actions for more than 5 minutes.
If you still think the Hearthstone meta is too unbalanced, then you should try Master Duel to see how wrong you are.
Konami hates modern game design. During the match, you are not fighting with a character, but with a strange platform on which you deal damage. There are no emotions or dialogue in the game. The battles are watched by 3D pets that don't look very attractive.
There is no way to drag a card to the field or direct it to the selected target for attack, as in Hearthstone. For each action you need to make a series of clicks, too many clicks for each phase and each turn in general. The button to switch the phases of the battle forces you to make extra clicks every time. This implementation is more suitable for the gamepad than for touch or mouse control. In addition, all animations are extremely slow. This is not surprising, since the game is made for players who have been waiting 9 years. This means that they have a lot of time and slow animations will not be a big problem for them. Of course, some of these shortcomings can be considered a feature of YuGiOh games. But Konami hasn't even made any attempt to modernize the gameplay.
I am delighted with one important feature. Players have the option to save their best matches and then replay them in a dedicated section. This feature is sorely missed by Hearthstone.
The most important criterion for us is always monetization. On this channel we are trying to play free-to-play games for free, so what about Master Duel?
I was wondering if it was possible to transfer card collections from previous PC games that allowed for purchases, YuGiOh Online and Duel Link. Konami didn't surprise me. It is not possible to transfer progress from these games, even if you have invested real money in buying cards. By the way, while preparing materials for this video, I reinstalled Duel Link and found that my progress was lost due to an error. Thank you Konami for the great technical support.
The community often criticizes Blizzard for its extremely greedy approach to monetization. But imagine that there are several clones of the Hearthstone game that are not much different from each other. Players are forced to collect separate collections of the same cards, and in addition, you can buy cardboard versions, which also cannot be transferred to video games. Even Bobby Kotick is not capable of that.
But let's get back to monetization. An important feature of YuGiOh compared to Hearthstone is the lack of a standard format. In other words, all 10,000 cards are available for deck building.
On the first day, you will be given a ton of premium currency, which can instill a false sense of loyalty. But the next day we managed to earn significantly less. By investing all your resources into buying packs and destroying almost all ultra-rare cards, which are similar to the legendary cards in Hearthstone, you can create an expensive meta deck to advance in the rating. It is also worth noting that decks can contain from 40 to 60 cards, half of which can be ultra-rare.
There is another very important difference. By destroying a card of a certain rarity, you don't get a universal crafting currency like in Hearthstone, but tokens of the same rarity that can be used to craft cards. In other words, you cannot use common or rare tokens to craft ultra-rare cards.
If you're an active free-to-play player, you'll be able to get some meta decks over time. But for this, you will have to give up the possibility of collecting ultra rare cards. And if the meta changes significantly after the release of a new expansion, you will actually lose some part of your progress. Do you want more variety? You will have to use budget decks, or invest a lot of money to make fun stuff.
Hearthstone isn't perfect either. If you are a new player, you will not be able to collect the entire collection of available cards for free. There are over 3,000 of them in the game. But there is a standard mode in which sets are rotated annually. Even if you prefer a mode that has access to all cards, then it will be quite easy for you to get good meta decks that will be relevant for a very long time, since the wild format meta is not subject to radical changes after the release of new expansions. But if the meta game of Master Duels does not change, then this will be a rather negative phenomenon.
It is important to note that at the moment, Master Duels is very poorly optimized for mobile platforms, despite the lack of complex visual effects. Be prepared that your smartphones will rapidly lose their charge.
Let's move on to conclusions. According to Metacritic, the game received a 79 Metascore from journalists and a highly mixed rating from users. To be honest, we also have very mixed feelings.
I'm very glad that YuGiOh was returned to us. The game is hugely important for fans of the franchise, even in such an imperfect visual and technical form. The game brought back many good memories for me. I discovered a lot of really interesting new mechanics and tactics. Although I still have the impression that we got more of a great simulator for enthusiasts than an official game from a company that earns billions of dollars. But the most frustrating thing is monetization.
We have the impression that the YuGiOh franchise has become a money-making pipeline. Konami is manipulating our sense of nostalgia and trying once again to get players to spend as much money as possible. If interest in the project fades, the company will immediately close the servers and launch a new game with the same cards again. We were extremely disappointed with another fact about Konami. Some time ago, they held an NFT auction dedicated to the Castlevania franchise. The company sold background music, illustrations, and even, you won't believe us, a few gameplay videos. For this trash, they managed to earn almost $170,000. Moreover, if you ever want to get rid of your NFT token, you will have to pay Konami a 10% commission on the amount of the transaction. To be honest, it all reminds me of a scam.
The collectible card game industry is extremely cynical. Every corporation wants to take your money. But some companies make efforts to support and develop their products and others are not so diligent.
We can only hope that Blizzard never crosses the line of cynicism and turns into Konami.
What do you think of Konami's approach? How would you rate the new YuGiOh game?
Share your thoughts in the comments, and join the voting on our community tab.
We will be extremely grateful to you for liking and subscribing to the channel as well as for turning on all notifications using the bell icon. You can also join our squad of loyal patrons and help us create new videos.
Dear friends, from all of my robotic heart, thank you so much for any kind of support.
Alright, that's all for today. Thank you for being with us.
And special thanks to Chris for his invaluable help.
We will definitely meet in a new video. Good luck.
Okay, cut.